The Intergalactic Council had met that day with an air of arrogance so thick it suffocated any shred of doubt. The Arcorians, rulers of dozens of systems, were used to dictating terms without dissent. As their ambassador was prepared to land on Earth, they viewed the planet as another acquisition in a line of victories they barely remembered, confident that humanity would submit like all others. Humans were considered a young species, naive and unorganized. A threat? The thought amused the Council. Earth had received the Arcorian emissary with apparent deference, maintaining a polite front. The envoy spoke in clipped, formal tones, translating their language to ensure no confusion. His words carried the weight of authority, veiled threats woven into each line, yet the humans before him kept their faces stoic, emotions unreadable. The envoy's practiced smile barely shifted as he laid out their terms, treating Earth's leaders as if they were guests in his court. There was no doubt in his mind they'd fold quickly. They'd recognize the futility in resisting. "Our alliance with Earth," the envoy declared, his voice echoing across the chamber, "will allow your species to avoid unnecessary suffering. You may continue your traditions, limited as they are, and in return, you will contribute your resources to the Arcorian Empire. Resistance would be unwise." The silence stretched, and a subtle shift among the human representatives spoke volumes. Though they responded in carefully chosen words, the warmth in their tone a mask. They thanked the envoy, acknowledging the Empire's influence but delicately suggesting that Earth's culture valued freedom and autonomy. They hoped for peaceful coexistence, a mutual respect. The envoy's smile became an insult, stretched too wide, dismissing any notion that Earth had leverage. The envoy's departure was accompanied by a formal farewell, his ship cutting through Earth's atmosphere without so much as a backward glance. Back on his command ship, he dismissed humanity as inconsequential, one among many planets that would soon be bound to the Empire's will. The report he sent back to the Council dripped with disdain. The humans posed no risk. On Earth, the atmosphere was charged. In hidden council rooms, guarded by layers of encrypted security, Earth's leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The quiet murmur of voices was overshadowed by a sense of urgency. The ultimatum had been clear: submit or face annihilation. Yet the leaders' resolve was set. They knew that without action, submission was the only future, and it was a future they couldn't accept. A plan was quietly, but swiftly, put into motion. Over decades, governments and researchers had hidden technology, innovations they'd never shared with the rest of the galaxy. Advanced particle manipulation, plasma shields, and even controlled quantum fluctuations, projects deemed too ambitious by some but never abandoned. They had worked in secrecy, driven by the unspoken knowledge that Earth, if challenged, would need something more than diplomacy. Meetings stretched late into the night, plans taking shape in hushed voices. The council members, scientists, and military commanders all agreed they would not stand idle. Surveillance revealed the Arcorian fleet's patterns, the speed of their ships, the range of their weapons, the gaps in their communication channels. Every detail was scrutinized, exploited, fed into simulations to anticipate the Arcorians' tactics. It was in these meetings that Earth's resolve solidified, not as separate nations, but as one. Boundaries, once political, dissolved in the face of shared purpose. The human representatives weren't ignorant of the power held by the Arcorians, but they knew they possessed something equally valuable: a willingness to endure, innovate, and fight for survival. In the days following the Arcorian envoy's departure, Earth's leaders, military commanders, and top scientists gathered behind closed doors, their faces set in determination. The planet was officially silent, but underground, plans were erupting with a fierce urgency. They knew the Empire had underestimated humanity, assumed their diplomacy to be a sign of weakness rather than a delay tactic. Every single person in those rooms understood the stakes, aware that they faced an adversary who believed Earth would yield without a fight. It was in these secluded halls that humanity's true intentions took form. Projects that had been mothballed were revived, dusted off and scrutinized, plans refined to a razor's edge. They'd worked in the shadows for decades, developing tech they couldn't share, even with their allies. Weapons were tested, recalibrated, and prepped, as a fleet of engineers and scientists scrambled to make them operational. Plasma emitters, energy shields, and even experimental quantum distortion fields, powerful enough to rival any Arcorian shield, were finalized in record time. Leaders across nations understood that cooperation was non-negotiable. In those briefings, the last barriers fell, and collaboration flowed without reservation. Resources were pooled and efforts unified, creating an international task force whose only purpose was to protect the home they refused to surrender. Many of these scientists and engineers had families. They knew what would happen if they failed. They'd seen the broadcasts, the planets stripped to barren husks by the Empire's unyielding expansion. The Arcorian fleet's capabilities had been analyzed to the smallest detail. Each vessel's specifications, from its engine thrust to shield frequency patterns, was reviewed. A vast network of intelligence units tracked their communication signals, providing data that Earth's strategists used to uncover flaws. The Arcorians believed their tech to be untouchable, making them complacent. Earth would leverage this arrogance, exploiting every overlooked weakness. Late into the night, specialists gathered in hidden bunkers, engineers calibrating defensive platforms and testing experimental drones that could intercept Arcorian ships before they entered orbit. Scientists bent over control panels, scrutinizing screen after screen of data, recalculating the impact of their tech on Arcorian shields and weapons. Quiet discussions were held, contingency plans developed, every possible angle considered. Humanity was preparing not just to defend but to strike with an efficiency that the Empire couldn't possibly expect. The underground weapons facilities churned with activity. Rapid assembly lines converted civilian factories into military production sites overnight, creating war machines, defensive systems, and attack vessels capable of matching the Arcorian fleet. Earth's greatest minds focused on one goal: turning every piece of hidden tech into an advantage. They perfected cloaking technology that would let human ships operate undetected, weapons that bypassed traditional shielding systems, and energy dampeners that could render Arcorian detection systems useless. For humanity, this wasn't merely defense. It was an exercise in survival. The engineers who'd spent years developing plasma propulsion tech, the scientists behind quantum manipulation research, and even diplomats who knew how to strategize psychological warfare, each of them had a role. Every mind was dedicated, unyielding, and driven. Earth's defenses didn't stop at creating shields or weapons. They'd devised ways to confuse Arcorian sensors, designed electromagnetic pulses that could disable their ships at close range, and engineered drones capable of kamikaze attacks with precision strikes on vulnerable areas. All of this was made possible by something the Arcorians hadn't considered: a collective human resilience. Earth had faced wars, internal conflicts, and crises that nearly fractured their civilization, but they'd survived. Now, faced with an alien force that threatened their extinction, humanity became united. Each piece of technology wasn't just a weapon but a statement: Earth would not fall. In those tense days, humanity's quiet preparations became an unspoken promise to one another. They would fight, not for the glory or to conquer, but simply to protect the ground beneath their feet, the skies above them, and the freedom that was theirs alone. The silence shattered as the Arcorian fleet entered Earth's orbit, a vast armada casting a shadow across continents. The Arcorians had dispatched a warning strike, an overwhelming show of force meant to cow Earth into submission. Their ships hovered like predators over their prey, radiating power and arrogance. To them, this was routine. Another planet would fall without incident, another civilization would bow. But within seconds, their confidence wavered. Earth's response was swift, precise, and utterly unexpected. Hidden defense stations on Earth and in orbit activated with flawless timing, releasing concentrated plasma blasts that shredded the initial wave of Arcorian drones. High-energy shields sprang up over critical locations, deflecting the first Arcorian volleys with stunning resilience. A silence fell over the Arcorian commanders as they watched their drones, designed to intimidate, disintegrate before they could complete their formation. In their command centers, Arcorian officers scrambled, assessing the threat, their confidence cracking. This wasn't the helpless planet they'd expected. Earth's defenses were not only holding but actively countering. Reports flooded their screens, coordinated attacks on their perimeter, counter-strikes launched with devastating accuracy, and human ships cloaked in stealth slipping through their lines undetected. Earth's forces were lean, strategic, and relentless, as though they had been waiting for this day. Earth's ships darted around the Arcorian vessels with surgical precision, exploiting gaps in the formation with calculated ferocity. Every Arcorian counterattack was met with an unexpected counterstrike. Earth's fighters moved as one, each shot timed to maximize damage, each maneuver a statement of defiance. Plasma projectiles sliced through Arcorian armor, and quantum pulses destabilized their shields, leaving them exposed to Earth's firepower. Back on Earth, every defensive structure was live, tracking and targeting with a synchronicity that overwhelmed Arcorian sensors. Earth's electromagnetic pulse fields jammed their communications, cutting off commands mid-transmission. Ships that had never experienced failure were now flickering with power surges, their systems malfunctioning as human forces hit weak points with unnerving precision. Earth's forces were smaller but ruthlessly efficient, their strategy uncompromising. The Arcorian fleet struggled to regroup. Commanders barked orders, desperate to restore order, but Earth's forces were relentless, pressing each advantage without mercy. The Arcorian shields, which had protected them in countless battles, failed to adapt to Earth's unconventional tactics. Weaponized drones swarmed their larger ships, colliding with precise fury, setting off chain reactions that crippled their engines. Earth's coordinated strikes showed an unparalleled discipline, every move a calculated blow to the Arcorians' morale. Human pilots moved with a practiced determination, executing maneuvers that defied Arcorian protocols. The Empire's ships, once considered invulnerable, were systematically stripped of their pride and power, their debris scattering across Earth's upper atmosphere. The battle took a turn that the Arcorians hadn't anticipated. Earth's forces broke through, targeting the flagship, a move that should have been suicidal for any other species. But human ships, equipped with cloaking and high-yield plasma weapons, closed in before the Arcorians even detected them. Earth's most advanced prototype ship engaged, its plasma cannons focused and unrelenting, slicing through the flagship's defenses, puncturing its hull. Chaos erupted among the Arcorian command. Their fleet, once unbreakable, was dissolving before their eyes. What was supposed to be a display of dominance had become a nightmare. Earth, once a planet beneath their notice, had turned into a force they could not contain. Arcorians who had seen victory after victory were now faced with an undeniable truth: they had underestimated humanity to their own peril. Word of the disastrous assault spread quickly across the galaxy, relayed by Arcorian survivors who returned dazed, their confidence shattered. They spoke in whispers of humanity's unexpected power, of ships that moved like shadows and weapons that tore through Arcorian defenses as if they were paper. The Arcorian High Council listened in disbelief, their expressions slipping from disdain to shock as the reports grew darker. For the first time, the Empire felt the sting of genuine fear. Back on Earth, the aftermath of the battle became a moment of solemn pride. There were no celebrations, no declarations of victory. Humanity knew they had only delayed a greater storm, but they had also sent a message. Earth wasn't a conquest waiting to happen. It was a planet filled with resilient minds and relentless hearts that refused to be conquered. As surviving Arcorians regrouped in deep space, Earth's leaders convened, understanding that retaliation would come. They knew this victory was only a prelude to the challenges ahead, but there was no hesitation. Plans were immediately set in motion to strengthen defenses, advance weapon technology, and prepare for a possible alliance with other races who might be inspired by humanity's defiance. Meanwhile, distant empires and smaller galactic states, who had once feared the Arcorian dominance, began to view Earth as a beacon of resistance. Hushed messages arrived from planets that had suffered under the Empire's rule, messages of support, of hope. Alien leaders, until now bound by fear of the Arcorians, started reconsidering their allegiances. If humanity could defy the Empire and stand unscathed, perhaps others could as well. The Arcorians, shaken by Earth's retaliation, hesitated, weighing the implications of a renewed assault. Attacking Earth again would require resources, time, and an acknowledgement of their own vulnerability. The once proud council, faced with an enemy they could no longer dismiss, debated their next steps. Their reputation was at stake. Attacking and losing again could trigger widespread defiance across the galaxy, an outcome they could not afford. But leaving humanity unchecked? That was an equal risk. Amid the uncertainty, humanity continued its preparations. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, refining their tech, bolstering their defenses, and expanding their reach. The greatest minds collaborated, now fully funded and with unprecedented access to resources, taking Earth's defenses to a level unimaginable even a year before. Humanity wasn't only preparing to defend, they were preparing to become a force the galaxy could no longer ignore. For the galaxy, Earth had become a name that sparked curiosity, respect, and a hint of fear. The final message to the Arcorians was clear in the unspoken solidarity among Earth's inhabitants: humanity would not be broken. Should the Empire return, they would find an even stronger, more unified planet, ready for whatever lay ahead. Earth's people went about their lives with renewed resolve, aware of the threat looming but unwilling to surrender the freedom they had defended. They knew the Arcorians might still come. Yet, should that happen, they would meet them with the same defiance, the same willpower that had carried them through the first assault. And so, humanity stood, no longer a species overlooked but a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even the mightiest empires should think twice before giving humans a reason to go to war.